Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Augustus the Animator. Today we are learning how to recreate the intro credits animation from the show Queer Eye. You may have heard of it, it's a cultural phenomenon. It's a really fun, short, colorful text animation, so I thought it'd be really fun to learn how to do. It is a little complicated and tedious in parts, so there's a few things that are important to get right to make it look smooth and natural and great. And I'm going to teach you how to do that right now. Okay, let's go. In our composition, which is 1920 by 1080 at 24 frames per second, I have set up the Queer Eye logo just based on an image that I found from the internet that you can do too. It's not exactly the same, but it's pretty close. This font for the letter E is Deglossia, which you can get on defont.com, which I can link below in the description. And the Q of that font doesn't match, which is okay, because it's actually going to be easier to make the Q out of just a circle with a stroke of about 30 and a little line of the same stroke, 30. Otherwise, you'd have to manipulate the letter Q in a way that's just not efficient at all, so we're just going to do that instead. I just use Avenir Roman for the Queer Eye text right here, and it looks pretty close, so we're just going to go with that. All right. The first thing that happens is the Q draws on in a circular fashion, starting from the right edge of it. So we are going to add a trim paths to this, right there. Start everything at 100%, and then keyframe your start. Move forward, we'll say 20 frames or so, and then drag that all the way down to 0. But before we get to the very end, we're going to offset this 90 degrees because it's going to start from this point, not the top. So now, yeah, that's the direction we want it to go. Make sure this finishes, it go to 0. Great. Let's add an easy ease to this guy. I'm going to use the Motion V2 plugin because it's amazing. I'm not sponsored, I just love it. We'll crank that to about 75% influence. Perfect. Great. And at about a second, or just a little after, is when the leg of the Q comes in. So we're going to make him start at that time. And I'm going to adjust his anchor point by hitting the Y key and moving, and I have snapping on right now, and I'm going to snap it to the center of this circle because we're going to have it, because it starts right here and rotates down. So at about a second, we're going to do that. Let's make a rotation keyframe at 2 seconds. Rotate, because that's our ending spot. And at the start, let's make it be completely horizontal. And that looks actually pretty good. So we're going to keep it there. Let's easy ease this as well. We'll say 75% influence. And there. Now we are going to grab both of these layers and pre-comp them. We'll just call it Q letter, I suppose. Great. And what we're going to do is when it ends, or when the Q stops animating, so right around 2 seconds, we're going to put down a position keyframe. And then the beginning of this, I'll move forward just a frame so I can see where this is. We're going to shift it over to the right because it comes in from right to left. Perfect. Let's easy ease this guy too. We'll say 75, keep it consistent. That doesn't look too bad. I might actually crank this just a little higher to like 80. Perfect. And then for this letter E, that I'm just going to call E, let's turn him back on. And we need to make an alpha for him to come on now. So let's make a line. No fill on this bad boy. Stroke is good. We'll put it, actually, it's 2 different colors so we can see it. And put the stroke at 30 because that's what the Q was. And we'll just make this bar grow across because that's kind of the next thing that happens. Click, shift click over here. Perfect. Actually, it's not. And we're going to adjust it by just moving it down with the arrow key. Right about there. I'm actually going to make this 31 stroke just so I make sure it covers up everything. And we're going to add a trim paths to this bad boy, which we will call E bar alpha. I think there's a real name for all the different parts of a letter, but I don't know them, and that's okay. You don't need to either. Trim paths. Let's see. We are going to make this start to draw on before the Q closes. So let's crank the end all the way down to 0%, keyframe that, go forward 10 or 15 or so frames, and then crank that all the way to the right so it draws on, and we will grab that end keyframe and easy ease him as well. We can keep it at 80, that's just fine. And we will cut off this guy with Alt left bracket to make him start right when the keyframes start. Great. So that's good. And now we are going to repurpose this Q as an alpha for the E drawing on. So let's actually go into the Q letter, grab the Q. I should call this Q circle. Just for clarity, copy him, go back with the tab key into this composition, paste this bad boy, and we are going to move this. We'll change the color of this again just so that we can see it. Make it 31 point stroke, and then move him just to make sure he covers up that E, which it looks like he's doing, which is super. And now this will start to appear, or the E will start to draw on right when, basically when the little leg of the Q starts to pop out. So let's have him start here. And the E kind of comes out from behind, oops, oh my gosh, it comes out from behind the Q. So let's hit the U key. Actually, let's twirl this down so we can see all of our trim paths. And we are going to make this start here because the only thing we see draw on with the E is this bar and then the lower part of this, because this part is already drawn on kind of like with the Q, like when it comes out from behind it. It'll make sense if you are familiar with the logo. So what we're going to do is adjust the start so that the top half is basically already drawn on. So we're going to adjust our offset a little bit so that this starts to cover up. So that way this entire part of the E is covered with this alpha versus just that, that little piece missing. And then we're going to extend our start to be about here, just because that will, now the entire top hemisphere of this E is covered. And then when it draws on, that looks nice. This part will draw on. I wonder if that's a little long. That's pretty good. And then we're actually, just to make sure we get the smoothest motion possible, we are going to adjust the end keyframe to just cover up the tip of that so that it easy eases nicely into this position and doesn't blow past it, just to make everything look very high quality. Perfect. Okay. So we're going to call this E circle alpha. Great. And you're like, wow, that looks great. Okay, agreed. Let's grab both of these, pre-comp them. So we have one E alpha. E alpha. That is great. Put him right here. Let's make the E an alpha mat, or this an alpha mat for the E. And let's just watch that to make sure it looks okay. Bar draws on, lower part swoops in, and that looks good. Okay. Now what we're going to do is grab the E alpha and the E, pre-comp that, just so we can work with one layer to make this much easier. We'll call this E letter. So now we have our E letter and our Q letter. How perfect. Great. So now what we're going to do is, right when everything ends, let's do a position keyframe for this E. And the E starts to shoot out to the right When does the E shoot out to the right? Basically, right when all of this other stuff happens. When the Q leg pops out and this starts to drop down, is when it starts to. So let's make a position keyframe here, not here necessarily. Let's move him at this time to line up with the Q. And let's zoom in, get as precise as we can. It doesn't need to be insanely perfect unless you're a perfectionist. And that looks pretty good. Great. Let's easy ease this bad boy pretty strongly. We'll say 80% influence for that last position keyframe. And that looks not good because we need to parent the E to the Q. Look at me go. Okay, we need to parent the E to the Q and then adjust this because I screwed up that order. There we go. Great, and now it should, yes, appear right from behind the Q. Love it. Excellent. Okay. So really, well, I wouldn't say the hard part's over, but a good chunk of it's over. So look at us go. Okay. Now let's make both of these magenta because that's one of the colors of all these letters. So let's do help fill and generate fill. We don't want red, we want magenta. That looks great to me. It doesn't need to be perfect. You can color pick something if you want to, but as long as you have a magenta, a yellow, and a blue, this will work, or a cyan, excuse me, this will work. Great. Let's copy paste that fill to the E. And let's also make both of these, label them as fuchsia, just so this is a lot easier to work within the timeline and we'll stay organized. And now we're going to duplicate these bad boys, shift them over 2 frames, duplicate them again, shift them over 2 frames again, and let's make these top ones cyan, middle ones yellow, and it should be that order that these happen as well, if you're following the credits precisely. And now let's change the fill of the Q to yellow, a very nice bright yellow. That looks great. Copy that fill, paste that fill onto the E, and then we'll do the same with this top Q, the cyan one. Not blue, but cyan. That looks super. Great. Copy that fill, paste that fill onto the E. Wow, basically done. Just kidding, not even close, but we're getting there. Okay, so that is great. Now, okay, let's do this just so you can trust me a little bit. Grab all of the letter layers that you just made, and the magic is switching the blending mode from normal to multiply. Oh my god, look at now it turns black, amazing. That's the secret, that's the key. Look at that, it feels better already. Okay, now, let's also, this is not the right time to do this, but let's add a white solid, put it in the background. Super, he's locked, that's great. Okay, now, we need to have these circles of the Q kind of align before all of this stuff starts to happen, because this looks a bit messy right now. So let's go to, let's see, this Q, the sort of our original Q. We have our position keyframes. Let's lay one down right in the middle, right sort of, you know, as this bar is starting to approach the end, and I think before this pops out. So to get these to align, we're going to make a position keyframe right in the middle. Actually, let's not do that. Let's do it just before the Q leg pops out. We'll make a position keyframe, and then we're going to command click that to be the circle one. I know there's a better name for it, but this is the one that means it's going to fly through it at a consistent speed versus stopping or going to a speed of 0 at it. So let's copy that, paste it onto both of the other cues, so now that they align, which is great. And we want that to be at the same time. So these cues will get here more quickly. Great, look at us go. So now another little tightening up thing we want to do. We don't want these colors to be showing through with these like misaligned cues over here. So we're just going to match up all of these ending position keyframes, which of course still doesn't look like it's doing anything. Let's grab all of those and then re-enter their easy ease. So I'm making sure that they're all at exactly 80% influence because adding these keyframes could have messed that up. And so now when you do it, they snap to be much more close to each other, which is great. And the ease are looking good for right now. Okay, so that looks great. Now we have a set of each of the, magenta, yellow, blue for the Q and the E, but there's 2 of those each. And we need to do that. So let's grab everything, duplicate it. We're going to shift everything up to just be these 2 groups. We have our first group of Q and E, then we have the second group. Let's shift these over past these, past the starting point of the other ones, and we kind of just are going to look at it to see. Yeah, basically you want a little bit, we want this group, and then we want this group, and a little space in between them, which might be, that's probably 8 or so keyframes after the start of this. Great, not looking bad. We want to do the same thing to make sure all these cues are aligned, which they're clearly not right now. Adjust this circle keyframe, the name of which I don't remember, to be aligned with the other cues. Great. And then let's also adjust these keyframes, the very end position of these, to be aligned with the end of those. Look at that, and we have a nice crisp cue, which is great to keep this from looking messy. And now to tighten up the ease, just to have it a little bit cleaner than all of these colors happening, let's adjust the timing of the first set of the ease to align with the first set of the cues, so those align at the same time. And then we are just going to make all of the second set of ease have the exact same ending time, just to kind of have it be squished into that black E more quickly. Bam! All right, hard part's over, which is just amazing. So that looks great, I think. I hope you do too. Let's make our Queer Eye text reappear. And this guy just, the word queer comes out from the middle of here and just appears to the left, and the word I starts over here and goes to the right, and they both appear from like the center of those words. So all we have to do is make a new shape layer. We will do no stroke on that. Let's do a fill of this great color right here, and we'll make it start right at the center between the 2 words and just have it go big over here. Really ugly, doesn't need to be pretty. Let's duplicate this text, duplicate this guy, put a shape layer over each of these. For the word queer, we're going to have this be a regular alphabet. And then for the word I, we're going to have it be an alphabet inverted. So now both appear, and we don't have to do a different shape layer, and now we know they're coming out from the exact same spot. Okay, that is super. Those are going to appear, these kind of start happening when the little leg of the Q starts to come out. So around this time is great. Let's chop all of these off so they start only when they need to with Alt left bracket. Let's actually go to the end timing. We'll make a position keyframe for each of these. Position, go to the beginning. We'll make go to the left, disappear, just go behind the alpha. Same with queer. We'll have them push them to the right, and then they slide out like that. We will easy ease these bad boys. We'll say 80% again. Great. And then we are going to duplicate these. I'm not going to mess with color because it's a bit simpler now. Duplicate both of those. Shift them over 2 frames to the right. Duplicate them again. Shift them over 2 frames to the right. And we'll grab the first 2 and make those magenta. So let's color pick right here. Grab the second set, make those yellow, color pick. Grab the third set, color pick to be cyan. Perfect. And now let's grab all of them, but not the shape layers, to be multiply. And look at that. Just like the title. That sums up the Queer Eye intro credits animation. A little tedious, but once you understand it, it's pretty straightforward, and I hope that you can apply this to other fun phrases or logos or other animations that you have, because it's a really cool effect. If you learned something, and I hope that you did, maybe consider liking the video, maybe consider subscribing to my channel, maybe consider commenting below with questions or thoughts on the tutorial. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. And otherwise, go take a break, watch an episode of Queer Eye, and have a great day. Bye!